Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I'm your host, James O'Hagan. Today I have the pleasure of having my friend, Kevin Brown. Kevin not just works with NASEF, North American Scholastic Esports Federation, as an Esports Program Specialist. He's also, you also have a role with the Orange County Department of Education as well. And do the two kind of go hand in hand? Are they separate? Because, me, myself, I wear, I think, 3 or 4 different hats in a day. Right. Are you kind of in the similar boat right now?
Only 2 heads and not fond of hats, but yes. So this is an odd unicorn kind of mix. I've said this for the last 3 years. I've held this position. So my position is funded through NASEF, the Samueli Foundation. It was to bring an educator who had an eye on esports, somebody who understood the world of career tech education, which I do. That's where my teaching credential is. It's in hospitality, restaurant tourism, also sales marketing. Also, strangely enough, English language arts. I'm going to leave that. I can use that bargaining chip later, I found out. But they wanted a teacher. They wanted somebody who's in the know, and then somebody who games, right? That secret closet skill. I get to look like, hey, aren't you that guy with the dice and you're a wizard in your past life? Yeah, that's me. Good. You're the guy we need. Yeah. So this has been an interesting dual position. So I always represent, like you see in the banner here, it's OCDE and NASEF. Mm-hmm. I am the Esports Program Specialist. That's the one title for both. I write curriculum. I do student outreach. All the things that you know that I do. We see each other at the same conferences. We actually present along the same lines. So we're very much aligned and affiliated. It's just that to give, I think, NASEF early on the curricular credibility, they wanted a teacher doing the early work. And that made perfectly good sense. And they've had the backing of our superintendent, Dr. Almi Harris. We're the county office of ed oversees 27 school districts, about 500,000 kids.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, it's big.
You say, because I say 27 schools.
Yeah.
And you say 27 school districts.
That's right. So with 10s and 20s of high schools and middle schools and even more than, with elementary schools. So everyone with a function. But yeah, it's the number, 500,000 kids. That's about 9% of registered students in California, all here in Orange County. Wow. So that's a big whopping number. So I go to work every day thinking, don't blow it, because what you do affects all those kids in some way. So.
Well, and, those of us who are in public education and private education, and I mean, we're all kind of doing things a little differently this year for one reason or another. I can't remember what it is. But it hasn't been, in my perspective, it hasn't been all doom and gloom. In fact, I've seen a number of students who are actually thriving in this environment that we're in right now, of asynchronous learning in some cases of having the opportunity to accelerate because they are learning at their own pace and style. Right. But again, that's not to, again, put a damper on the kids who are also struggling in these environments as well, too. But I hope that this time that when we come out of this, that there's a perception that education doesn't have to be this 8 or worse, 7 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon kind of experience, that there are going to be hopefully some opportunities that grow out of this where kids are able to, maybe only meet for a couple hours a day with a teacher and then go about their business throughout the rest of the day as well, too. So I think there's going to be a lot on the table when we start to see what comes out of all of this here.
Agreed. Sort of presaging this, I know that Orange County, we did an exercise in October last year. It was something that we've got quarterly meetings with the Educational Services Division. Every district office has its IT section, its Health and Human Services, et cetera, all the things they do. I fall under Ed Services. And so we are often tasked to be that vanguard for the state of California. What we do in Orange County really does set precedent for the state. They watch us and we get things right more often than not. And that's a gratifying mix. But that also means that if we risk something and it blows up, it's all over the news. We hear about it. So when we're challenged to do things like, let's think about what the new form of education could look like. Ladies and gentlemen, come into this, bust into little work groups. And under the auspice of the superintendent and all of his associate superintendents, let's think about what education could be. And this was one of the early things we talked about. Why do we need to do things the way our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers went to school? Rote learning, set hours with a book, what is it? Sage on the stage, not even guide from the side. It's just, we do this rote learning, and that's good for you because that's the way we learned, and we've got our doctorates now. So this must be good for you, with no sort of blink to what's happening now, how 21st century skills have enabled us with 21st century technology, and things are different. Kids learn differently, and we don't seem to want to respect that. So I raised my hand and was that guy that kind of poked the bear and said, why don't we? Why are we in school every day? Why don't we turn the kids loose to do research? Why don't we take them on meaningful field trips, which are more like internships, where they get involved in something and they can see the applicability? I think that's the big deal with Scholastic Esports. You know this very well, that if there's not applicability in what I'm learning, why the hell am I learning it? Why is it even on the books?
Well, and it's funny. Well, it's funny you say that, because what's been really fascinating to me right now in the time, and just a half hour before we had this our interview here, and we're running this live right now on Facebook and Twitch if you're subscribers on either one. The thing that I had was I had a meeting with completely online meeting with about 30 kids from Horlick High School, and the conversations that have been going through our Discord, the conversations that went through that meeting wasn't so. The kids have such these wonderful ideas that they have now had opportunity, I guess, to really allow blossom as far as how they want their instruction to take place, how they want themselves to be perceived in online spaces. For example, one of the things that one of our scholar gamers in the Racine district recently heavily advocated for it, and thankfully my friend Carrie Linden became part of the conversation and we all got together, but it was around pronouns. It's something as simple as, I want to be able to self-identify as this way. And we actually taking a page from the UCI conference recently, because I was wondering, okay, how do I do this? And they had it right there at the UCI conference as a role selection. And while, typically role selections are helpful for tagging kids in or people in Discord servers, it was interesting how and I think you corrected me on this, because I said it's amazing what happens when you let people be seen. But it wasn't me letting kids be seen. It was themselves taking the step to let themselves be, to say, here I am, here's me, this is how I want to be perceived to the world. And that is something that I really think if we were just back in the classroom with everything else that's got to happen in that again, 7 to 2 or 8 to 3 day, I don't think those things start to bubble to the surface, because kids have opportunities now to think and be separated and not have to worry about themselves. Now they're alone a lot of times. I don't know, that sounds really awful, but they're alone in their homes with this opportunity to be like, well, wait a second, why can't I just be me? I'm in my own home and feel, I think a sense of safety coming out of that right now in some ways.
There is that. That said, I look at the 13-year-old I have downstairs who at once, yes, will take on curricula and can begin to pick it up at his own rate, but he's also leveling up in Fortnite at an incredible rate as well. So there's this monitoring that goes on. I think that there is slack time, but I think that kids are now they have to repurpose. They have to learn actual time management, because, he could do homework until late. I do see that teachers are assigning stuff later in the day and they expect it in the same day. I mean, I'm going to call BS on that. I've almost picked up the phone twice to say, what are you doing? You remembered something, and now because you want to tick a box and you want to look busy in front of your administrator, you're going to task all the kids and expect that they're reading their feeds and they're going to respond to you in real time and get that done today after school is done. You would never do that in that traditional model where you're on the clock. So why would you do it now asynchronously, thinking that now you're going to make these kids responsible? I mean, I get all chuffed about that. So I think we have to figure out how that time management model works. I'd like to see us run this for a while. I know that the kids are lamenting not being able to sit at lunch and tell stupid jokes until milk comes out of your nose, right? They miss the camaraderie. That is abundant to me. That is a palpable miss. And kids really mourn that. But at the same time, there is that freedom. I can come downstairs in my bunny slippers. I like the joke that today included, one of the questions, I think you might have asked this on TOA, was, so what are you doing more? What are you doing the same? What are you doing less in this pandemic environment? More is easy, less is easy. Less was, I have not worn shoes for sometimes 2 weeks at a time, right? I'm having to change the way. I don't need them. I don't need shoes because I can walk downstairs. But that doesn't make me any less effective. Kids, same way in the classroom. You've got to change your learning style. maybe you get more effective, maybe you get lazy, maybe you do let things, you procrastinate more because, oh, there's a due date, or I'm home, I'm not driving, there's no transit time, there's no study hall. I'm going to use this Slack. I think we got to figure it out, but I'd like to see where this model can go. I think this is a great time to take this immensely sour lemon and make some cool lemonade or something different out of it.
I had a 7th grader who is not really much of a self-starter until recently. Parents, it's been getting the student used to the idea of working again more independently. It's taken a bit of psychology. It's taken where I usually have a check-in with my students that I serve on a weekly basis, and rather than separate the child from his love of Minecraft, I said, "Keep playing. I'm just going to talk to you. You just keep playing." And it was, I think, a little weird for him at first to go, wait a second, this educator wants to talk to this teacher. Well, I'm an administrator, but wants to talk to me about my school experience, but he's telling me to not stop playing the video games. But what came out of that was feedback that his parents had not gotten, that I had not gotten before, because it wasn't the put up the wall now and be the student.
Right.
It was be yourself. And let's talk in these spaces. I even saw a study recently, or not a study, but a Skillshot's doing this. Skillshot was promoting this. Yeah. Of actually having therapists in game, and like you're playing a game and your therapist is playing the game with you, and you're having your therapy session over Call of Duty as you're taking down Nazis or whatever you take down in Call of Duty. Because I'm not a Call of Duty player, but that's. That I'm seeing on our Discord, kids getting together with their teachers across buildings at lunch to play Among Us. It's these kind of, like we I think are hold the norms that we had growing up a little bit tighter than these kids do. Right. They're finding, as you said, they may be missing the lunchroom, but they're making their lunchroom in a whole other place.
That's right.
As well.
That's right. Well, what does esports do, right? This is almost a primal human thing. What differentiates humans from other classifications of animals? Humans form communities. Higher orders of animals, ones that we know to be truly intelligent, form communities. Think of chimps, any of the great apes, think of elephants, think of whales, dolphins, cetaceans. They form communities and they travel in packs and they communicate. We do the same thing. We're bereft if we don't have a community, right? What's a kid going to do? We all saw Tom Hanks in Castaway, right? What do? You've got Wilson. You start talking to your volleyball, right? We can't help it. It's in our nature. So esports is really grand about this. This is what esports does. Kids are already digitally native. They play games. You know this. I know this. We play the same games. What do? We lobby up. We gear up. We get ready. It's the virtual locker room. We're prepping for a game. The smack talk starts, but so does a strategy. So does a theory. And then we all rush out onto that virtual field and we do our thing. They were prepped for this. So they're ready in one way. So I still think there's something to be said about being in the same room, right? It's the smell of fear, the smell of sweat, as you're going through top lane, bottom lane, jungle, whatever you're doing.
Not anymore, but go on.
Yeah. Was not trying to set and spike that point, but yes, point taken. Ooh, that's a whole other, rabbit, squirrel. I want to go down that hole. But whatever the game be, there is something about that synergy when you're in the room. But I think we're doing okay. I think esports right now has gotten a huge boost out of this. There's more credibility as teachers grasp for anything that looks digital in nature. And the fact that kids are already here, right? You know, our battle cry in NASEF, right? We meet kids where they are. We've known for years that they're already in this space. We really should let us lead the way and let them invite us, as they're doing now with teachers. I mean, Among Us, crazy, silly game, kind of like Roblox. It's to me, it's almost mindless, good fun. And it's kind of sneaky, and people can do all kinds, but isn't it the level playing field, right? You don't know who the murderer is. You don't know what's going on around you.
The imposter. They don't. I love that they don't call it the murderer. They call it the imposter.
Yeah. That's right. Roblox actually calls you a murderer. That's right. It is an imposter. But this idea that walls come down. And you know the research very well from UCI that shows that the biggest lift that esports clubs, this whole confluence brings to kids is in that social emotional learning space, is in the relational space. This just, again, suddenly teachers, not Mr. Brown, Mr. O'Hagan, it's like, dude, I'm still going after him, and we're going to take him down. Or we're going to figure out, are you that imposter?
Mm.
It's the likability scale goes way up. So it's been really interesting to watch this. I hope it doesn't go away. That's my hope right now. I hope that this isn't like the rush with NASEF and everybody loves this idea. And then when we're allowed to get back together, will this all just kind of slew us off? And that was it was a self-made trend. It was a trend based on a pandemic. And then will everybody ease off of esports because it's no longer the cool thing to go to? Or are we really paradigm shifting? Have we really changed enough minds? You saw maybe the closing webinar at UCI. I think, the last one at UCI with the student panel.
I did not. I missed that.
Mind blowing.
Really?
Just give the mic to kids. Let them tell you why esports is important to them. There was not a dry eye in the house because it was like a therapy session. Kids were telling us the benefits. And it was, I'm accepted for who I am. I'm one-eyed. I'm gay. I came out to my club before I came out to my parents because I knew they would accept me for who I am. I have these kinds of challenges. Crowds make me nervous. Intense crowds make me really nervous. I'm jumping into esports. It's an intense crowd. But there's a draw. I was made to feel okay. And now my teacher or others help me get this thing. You can see the benefit. How do you go back from that? So,
well, that's the damnedest thing.
No.
We have a tendency in education to find our level, and our level tends to go back to the tried. I won't call it tried and true, but to
safe. It's what's safe.
Things we grew up. But because, again, people talk about education as if they know what being a teacher is like because they sat in a classroom for 14 years of their life.
Right.
It isn't that. But I know even when I was a trained teacher first starting, I went back to the things that I saw occasionally in stressful moments when I was teaching, when I first started teaching. For example, and this is crazy, I can't believe I did this. I still can't believe I did this. I had to use the bathroom. Right. I had a self-contained class. What did we do in my old Catholic school back in the day? You had a student stand up at the front of the room, and if anybody did anything they weren't supposed to do, that kid is supposed to tell me. I did that. Oh my God, I can't believe that I did that. I walked out of a room and left a child looking at, this is my first year teaching, this is not recently, monitoring the room. That would be fireable.
Yep.
In this, and I got politely told, do not do that. That is not something you should do.
What are you supposed to do? Catheterize?
Well, you build up your kidneys and your bladder, right? And trust me, it does. Those of you who are new teachers, you'll be able to go for 4 straight hours until your prep is at the end of the day. But it is the things that we go back to. So yes, there's going to have to be, I think, a very conscious attempt to not have us do the things that we were doing too. As I told my staff, I said, we need to be technically flexible. And we need to, what was the phrase I used? I think it was resilient. Like we have to be prepared for if there's another shutdown. Think of a snow day, right? Just all of a sudden you have a snow day. Does learning have to stop? Well, if we've made all this investment in internet access into the home and technology, right, we don't. Now, if you're doing it for a day or two, how different is it going to be? Well, hopefully now it may not be very different at all than what we're doing. I don't know. But I've talked a lot. I'm sorry. I'm interviewing you.
No, you're good. You're good. Old Turkish proverb. I love what you said about what do you do as a student teacher? And I'm hoping teachers do this. I still see them come out newly minted out of, college. They're taking on their student teacher assignments. They're going to change the world. They latch onto one thing, but I think they forget they've learned from other teachers, older teachers who have, again, gone back to that rote well, and this is the way we do it, and this is the way we think. We think we've got innovation. Old Turkish proverb says, learn to behave from those who cannot. And I think as teachers, we do ourselves a good deal of wisdom if we think about, who did you hate? What was it as a student?
I loved everybody.
I'm glad you had those good teachers. I also went to Catholic school.
You meant teachers. I thought okay.
No. Teachers. The nuns beat math out of me. This is why I don't wear shoes, because I can't count to 20 without my shoes off. So math was never my thing. But
I ran into those kids too. My first years of teaching, I saw a kid doing this with his hands under the table. I said, are you counting?
Yeah.
He said, and he got really defensive. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. He said, what? I'm not supposed to count with my hand. I go, oh, yes, you can. Oh, please use your hands to count.
The numbers are right. The numbers of 9, how 9 works. Exactly. But the idea that we've got to change. So be that person who can see those differences. Anybody else would have been punitive in that case and said, what are you doing? Zip that up, right? That's not the case. You call it a student, it's all over. I know that because I taught alternative ed for several years. And again, I was teaching career tech education. So everyone trying to dress up kids who, pardon me, had their parole officers behind them. So these were my kids coming to class, but they were going to get jobs, pardon me, in hotel restaurant. That was my goal. So 40% of my kids every semester got a job offer, but how did we do it? We had to change the paradigm, right? It's like, just because you think those kids can't do it, just because you think that standard teaching models won't work, all right, you've got an exceptionally different crew. You've got to change your learning paradigms to match that. So we did things differently. I gave knives to kids, these kids, but we learned to cut. They were never going to be Emeril Lagasse, but they were good.
I have never seen his knife work, so I can't.
Every good chef on TV is a really good knife work. I'm still enviable. I learned for years, but these are the things you do, right? You got to change how things work. Again, so we get back to our central theme today. Will this change? Can we get something good out of COVID? Will this change the way we look at distance learning as truly a feature of learning? The kids are adapting. Why would we now? We're going to be in 6 months, 9 months if we go till January is what I'm hearing in California. Many schools won't go back till after the winter break. 9 months of training like this. Why would you waste that time investment? Kids now have a way that they will learn. They will pick up learning. They will work in groups. They're more likely to work in groups now because they have to. They're used to, though they're not always turn on cameras, they're used to working in Google breakout rooms or Zoom breakout rooms. They get work done. I'm hearing laughter as they're getting projects done. So that's a good sign. Laughing at, not laughing with, right? Whatever it is. But why would we waste that opportunity and then go back to the classroom full time and say, nah, I think there'd be a reverse culture shock going back into it.
Well, the thing that I know we're struggling with, and I'm sure because I know Kevin, is part of the work you have done to do outreach on behalf of NASEF and OCDE.
Yes,
is the digital poverty is so real.
Absolutely.
And I know that you worked this summer with the Compton schools on their summer. And when you pitched me this, so here, let me see if I can get this right. Okay. Yeah. Compton schools, we're going to launch an esports program this fall.
This summer, it was a summer school program.
Well, it was, but I mean, the official, like having all the equipment and everything was going to be in the fall. Correct. But they wanted you to do something this summer in the midst of COVID with no I assumed, they shut down in March like we did, and maybe there was instruction and maybe there wasn't, again, digital poverty being a real thing, especially in an area like Compton, California. Right. But you had to do it using Chromebooks, and nobody in their damn right mind is using Chromebooks for esports. Yep. How do you take that problem and turn it into something that was viable and sounded seemingly successful?
It was good. It had its hiccups. And again, Chromebooks, I lay all the blame at the feet of Chromebook. It's getting, and you know this as an IT director yourself, you've got to get IT in as soon as you raise your eyebrow at, hey, esports, you got to have IT on board to see what's even possible. We did not have that luxury. The order was, hi, we're this particular group in California, very large after-school program, does really good work. I've worked with them before in my career tech ed days. They wanted a program like they'd seen that we developed for YMCA. In YMCA, we have an 8-week program. So we use those 4 large domains that we see in the NASEF esports ecosystem. So the strategists, content creative, entrepreneurs, and organizers. I give 2 weeks to each of those in a summative project to make a 9-week session. I only had 5 weeks. So that's 1 week per each of the domains, and then 1 week to get ready prep for this summative kind of a mixed gallery walk / tournament, plus show me what you got. Show me what you picked up, your learning artifacts and all the cool things you were able to do in the 4 preceding weeks.
Show me what you got.
That's it. So we do that. And then, of course, the Trump was, I'm getting ready. This is great. I get the idea. We can do this. What do we got? Are we going into classrooms? Did you give your kids laptops? Oh, we gave them laptops. What did you give them? Was it Toshiba? Was it Dell? It was a Chromebook.
Oh, damn.
And I'm thinking, to your point, thank you. Favorite sound effect.
I'll help with the sound effect today. Yeah.
Thank you. Keep it up. Back to my radio days. That's it. Have the sound drop. Total fail in my book, but then I can't fail because NASEF to the charge. We heard you guys were good. We rubbed the lamp. You're the genie. Okay, we got 5 weeks. I can take 8 weeks, make 5 weeks out of it. Got it. Got good content, have great learning objects. Kids can reproduce and do things. They'll have representative skills to show. And this was young. This was 3rd grade, 4th grade, up through 8th grade. So a mixed bag. And again, as you say, digital poverty. Not everybody's got Wi-Fi. If they've got a Chromebook, they might not have access. Maybe have to share it with an older brother or sister because they're doing homework at the same time. So they don't have access when the class is going on. All kinds of mayhem. And then not being cleared through IT, not getting content unified, no blame, but having not enough time. They were already doing other projects, and this became a big push. Right. Clear me ports, get me bandwidth, do these things so that I can use whatever games that I finally came up with. So I mentioned Roblox earlier. So I love that. Among Us would have been a great ad. I love that for strategy. I could have done all kinds of things had that been up there. We used Roblox. We did a lot of things through there. They've got Pizza Shop. Working at a pizza parlor was great. Teaching economy, teaching money math, but teaching entrepreneurship. You got a bigger paycheck if you found a better way to deliver pizza in your territory. I'm like, all right, this is going to work. This teaches this particular skill. We did the fashion show that they got out there. So this taught us about creativity, taught us about personal brand, how to market, how not to be toxic. Just because it says, demon date night, and you've got to dress to impress, and kids are putting on horns and bat wings and all kinds of stuff, and somebody comes out with a pink unicorn, we didn't throw rocks at that person. We didn't allow for toxicity. So I had them all in separate servers, so they were just their group, so that teachers could control what was going on with that, so they could have an objective lesson right there. If the wheels fell off, and we did something toxic, we could do something about it and go back to our code of conduct that we'd written during the organizer phase. So everything, just like you've seen me do in other sort of lesson plans like this, it worked. But Chromebooks, yeah. And then try to find a game that is not pitched toward Caucasian males in any of the avatars, in any of the games that are played. Everything pitches toward one skin tone or something that is like, rainbow hued. You could be blue, you could be green. But I was looking for kids of color because that was my constituency. And I wanted them to build avatars that looked like them, that had the hair, had the dimples, had whatever the shape or size or whatever their thing was. I had to look hard, long, and far, many a night, 105 hours building this right before we launched it, put into looking for these right kinds of games. And ashamedly, there's not a lot out there.
Well, and what I like about what I'm hearing is the tendency is going to be, and quite honestly, I'll tell you too, given where my mental state was back in March, April, I'm sure or maybe you were tackling this in June, I don't know. Oh God. I would have just thrown up my hands and said, can't be done. I've got too much going on. But that's the thing I love about what you and people like Jarrell and Sam do at NASEF. And I know there's others as well too.
Absolutely. But you're a part of the extended family, Chalk Muju, Chris Vaselka, just lots of us, Steve Isaacs, Eric Leitner, we can go to the whole, the Musketeer roll call.
But what I love is that it seems that no matter what the challenge, your group meets the challenge. Like I would have thrown up my hands and said, can't be done. I don't have time to deal with this right now, but it seems like, with this, you because we've talked about the YMCA stuff. Yeah. And I had my idea for how YMCA stuff could go, and you took it from a totally different angle. I went, oh, okay, now this makes so much more sense.
Different way of looking at it, but it's the Mandalorian, right? This is the way. I guess we can't say no because we realize there are so many kids dependent upon this, and for some, this is their first real swing at something esports like. We don't know. Again, I go back to what I said earlier about 500,000 kids in Orange County. What decisions I make if I decide to pick up a project or not, do it to the best of my ability, or just dial it in and say, yeah, gave you what you wanted. but not my best work necessarily. That never crosses my mind, because some kid somewhere, I'm not a superhero, but some kid somewhere is going to pick that up and go, that's my jam. That speaks to me. I now see myself in a career path for my life. And I don't know, I'm not trying to aggrandize myself and say, I create this for kids. I'm not Gandalf. I'm getting there, but it's only the gray. But it's,
you and me both.
Yeah. So it's inspiring being able to be that spark. We don't know where that is, but somebody in Compton, somebody in Bellflower, somebody in Cudahy got a hint of something and said, oh, they saw the ecosystem. They got that this rains out into all kinds of cool possibilities, whether or not you actually game as your profession for your life. But you're now that shotcaster. You're now the shot caller. You're now the coach. You're the physical therapist, because we did daily stretching and exercise. So all this became part of the rigor for 5 weeks. Somebody woke up and went, that's my thing, Mom. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I hope that little girl is happy with it, because that's where she found some meaning. So yeah, that's why we can't fail. We can't drop it.
That's why whenever I have conversations with any of my virtual students, I always bring up, what games do you play? Not only is it a great conversational starter, but I even had one a couple of weeks ago who says, well, I really love playing, he listed off a number of games, but he said, basically, I know there's not a career in that. And so it's kind of silly to talk about it. Oh, I know. He only thought it was going to be like the programming side. Right. So then I said to him, I know NASEF did a fantastic job, and Constance and the research team did a good job on that kind of rounded, bubbly ecosystem thing. But there was the researcher, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but he was with Seth Jenny, and he presented at the UCI conference.
Yes.
And he listed out, like, he didn't just do generalizations. I mean, he created this chart that is this gigantic, map of every career.
That Candy Crush one is what I call it. It's colored and it's all out there. Yeah. I love that. I love that map. Yeah, that's tangible. You think, oh, these careers are still just esports, theory crafter. What is that? That's only an esports thing. You're right. That map, it takes it all the way out to, you're the production manager on a floor of a major TV show. What? I can concretize that, because 30 Rock, right? We can see that job. It's in media. We can see where that is. It named, I think they're like, did I count that? 132 different jobs in that thing. It was
massive.
I love it. It's a great expose. And then when parents and teachers like yourself, administrators, see that, it's not just for esports anymore. This, again, we've always said, whether or not you go on in esports to do any of these kinds of careers, we just posit these, 16 with health and wellness now. What you do with that, where you find your niche, what's your jam, that's so much bigger. Again, event planning. If you learn you can put on an esports event, you sure could. My side of the house, 20 plus years in hotel hospitality, you're now my wedding planner. You now can put on the Democratic National Convention at your hotel if that's what you're going to do, because the skill set is exactly the same. The requirement is there. You just move it into a different industry.
It's just like once you learn to cook,
that's it. There you go. Well,
and you learn your basics on your spices. Everything else is like jazz. It's just riffing.
Sam is coming your way, by the way. She is absolutely. She's dropped the idea about a salt and pepper. That's the show she and I were going to do. We're going to do our own podcast. She's like, no, I got to get with James. Drop me like a hot bad habit. And said, I got to get with James. We should do a cooking show. So just know she's going to come looking for you.
So so I do own the domain esports.cooking. There is an actual domain called .cooking.
Yep.
And Sam and I have talked about the idea of having a, not anything fancy. I want to be able to help the kid who only has a corner bodega or a convenience store or whatever it is, find what they need and cook something healthy, and isn't processed and isn't just put through a whole bunch of isn't in a bag, right?
So hotel, a good friend of mine, he was the director of purchasing for a very large project in Newport Beach, California, brand new multi-billion-dollar resort we were building. We sat in our off time. So as we're building a resort, there's a work day, that's 10, 12 hours. And then there's the dwell time after, when you're thinking, oh my God, I'm so tired. But our idea was, we had both kids that were going through school at that point. And we're like, they eat garbage. They eat garbage. We went up to see his son up in Berkeley, and they were looking at us. And so we go up, oh, my old man and his best friend came up. And what are they going to do? They're going to cook. 15 kids rushed the apartment because the old guys were going to cook. And we were onto something. So we created what was called the Dorm Room Gourmet. We did a whole cookbook. We actually took, who was a friend at that point, he was the executive chef for, the corporate chef for Hyatt, crazy Hungarian guy. We rewrote recipes and did everything you're just saying. That we actually were going to buy a food truck, drive it to campuses and like, look, you knuckleheads, this is how you do food on the cheap. And it's not always ramen. You're not eating the dry thing out of a package. Eat properly, eat well. We had a whole section on date night, impress him or her, or, they impress your partner with this cool thing that you can do for cheap and it's tasty. Wine exclusion.
Well, and that's the thing. Sorry, we're gonna take this on a cooking slant here for just a second, ladies and gentlemen. But
we're gonna go.
I cannot understand why people pay the premium cost for chicken breasts when chicken thighs is where it's at.
It's all flavorful. I'm with you. I'm vegetarian, but I'm with you. I will cook with those.
I forgot that you are, but no, I went to my local Aldi, and those of you who don't have Aldi in your area, it is a German grocery chain, cousin of Trader Joe's, very similar experience, small, brandless, mostly store brand stuff. They had packages of chicken thighs, boneless chicken thighs for 80% off. I got several pounds, we shall say, of chicken thighs for $2. Yep. I mean, and I made a simple curry powder.
That's it.
And just roasted chicken thighs. And now what do I have? I've made fried rice out of it because I've got, because it's got that Asian slant to it. I put it on tortillas, even though they're, it's like a tortilla is just, naan and corn form. So
that's right.
There it is.
It works.
But it's something that it just took like somebody going in and saying, this is what you can do. This is how you do it. And again, the things you're talking, the introduction you're giving, your program this summer wasn't what Riot or Blizzard or Epic or,
anyone,
Slasher would call esports. But what you did was provide the invitation to it, because some kids are, while they love playing games, they don't necessarily have the invitation to do it in ways where they see all the connections and mom and dad will approve even.
That's right.
You provided that invitation of, yes, we're using Roblox, and Roblox typically is not what you would call a AAA title when it comes to esports. You don't see Roblox competitions across the country or $1 million prize pools, but you did get kids working together in teams. You did get kids working in and seeing technology and existing in environments and collaborating together and seeing the different roles that they can have and sharing those roles. That to me is an invitation that I think is missed a lot of times in our programs. Collegiate, they're already prepared. They think, oh, these kids already know what they're doing. But that high school, middle school especially, middle school is that untapped esports market that I think once we get middle school right, once we, and I'm not talking about, oh, we're going to start introducing Overwatch at the middle school level and just turn them into pro middle, Overwatch players.
That's right. Dear listeners, please don't faint. That's not what we're saying.
No, but the
you start them here. You grow them here. Exactly. This is my whole rant on toxicity. If you want to stamp out toxicity in this generation, in this lifetime, you start in middle school. You grow them appropriately. You start with a code of conduct. You start with equity, access, inclusion. You make it okay to be different, to be unique. And as long as you've got a crazy mad skill set, a passion for whatever game you're playing, don't care how many eyes you got, don't care how many dads you got, don't care about your skin tone or what zip code you got. None of that matters. It's what's underneath this. It's that club structure and what we're bringing to it. And again, middle schoolers, my favorite story about that, right? The class I taught about all minds, all kinds. That was my middle school's battle cry. I challenged them the first week of our program. We had a 9-week session we were doing. And so as part of that 9 weeks, we get ready for the following 9 weeks. I'm already thinking about marketing. So we've got to think about the next iteration of kids coming into your esports club. How will you greet them? How will those kids, when they open that club room door, know that they belong there? It's just got to be to blink, because I taught them about, how do you make a first impression? How quick? It's lightning quick, but it lasts forever. So when that door opens, you got to do something. So let's come up with a newcomer's guide. And I'm going to need a logo. So they had fun about drafting the logo. We used iPads, 3 different kids. I watched this thing fly across iPads until somebody finally came out with a 3D colored rendering of what this Cyclops with a baseball bat that was the mages of the tech lab. Don't ask me. That's what they came up with. But I said, this is great. We're doing it. We're doing it. This is all going into a booklet, 6-page newcomer booklet. I said, I need a tagline. I need something that if I'm brand new, if I'm new to this school, we had a heavy immigrant population coming from Asia primarily, but also from South America, Central America. How will I know that you want me there? Think on this. 15 minutes later, they buzz through this and, hey, Mr. Brown, what do you got? And I kid you not, get out of the mouths of babes, right? This is where these jewels come. Mr. Brown, here's what we got. All minds, all kinds. Mic drop. Subtle tear. I'm like, I can't make this up. They came up with this. This is how they wanted to let people know that we would take all minds, all kinds. If you were one of those things, you belong with us. Please become the leaders of foreign nations. Please become the leaders of our states. Please.
I want for president.
Yes, today. I'll take you in your angsty 12-year-old.
What does the Constitution matter anymore anyway? But let me ask you this. It isn't just schools. Now, here's the thing. When we actually physically, I can't believe that. I think it was late February. It had to have been late February when we were in Nashville for the library conference.
Yes, that's right. It was. No, early February. It was late January, early February. Yeah. And COVID was still. It was a thing. It was overseas. It wasn't. That was the last time we saw each other physically. Physically, right?
And I don't think we've gone that long since then. But
because we're always on the conference circuit, whether we're talking or we're fanboy following each other through whatever. But yeah.
But as best as you can, because I know it's not your program, but you work with these people, talk about what libraries are doing with regards to esports.
This was not even a push for NASEF. We hadn't even thought about that. So YMCA had come on board. They approached us and said, can you help us in out of school time, after school space? And we came up with the 8-week program, and it worked really well. It was great, pre-COVID. Earlier, though, we had just this little solo response comes into info@nasef.org. Hi, I'm a little tiny library in Pottsboro, Texas. Pottsboro sits right up against the Oklahoma border, the northern border of Texas. And she said, I'd like some information. What are y'all doing? I'm interested.
Is it all the time?
That's it, y'all. So this is Diane Connery was her name. And I gave her the full lowdown, got her on a Zoom call, did the whole outline, said, good, we'd like to try this in our library. And I said, do tell. What is it you're thinking about doing? And she told the story. This is her, when she goes to a conference, this is her rap, because nobody believes this. But she was the director of library science there in Pottsboro, small town. I think it's all of 5,000 people total. And the library was one of the few things open later at night. It's one of those, the sidewalks roll up at 10. It's got great big parking lot lights, and it's got the best Wi-Fi in the town. It's got good, strong Wi-Fi signal. So she was leaving, locking up the library, and kids are sitting on the steps. And they're on their phones doing what they do, like, all angsty. They're ignoring her, but on their phones. And she asked, what are y'all doing? And they're all, we're leveling up. We're playing games. We're doing whatever. Really? And she began to see the same faces several times, several evenings out of the week. And then she realized, how come I never see you inside working on your book report or finishing your project or doing research? We can do that here at the steps too, but it was esports that was there. They couldn't go home and game because it's sucky rural sucky rural Wi-Fi. So, or no Wi-Fi. So she came up with the idea, let's get this going. Let's start something simple. She got a library grant and was able to put up 10 stations, and she could do 5-on-5 League of Legends or 3-on-3 plus extra for Rocket League. And so it started, and that took off and went nuts. Next year, she wrote a grant, and she got more in grant money than she did from her state for the salary, for the upkeep, for her library. And now she's gone out, as you saw, to the PLA, so the Public Library Association. This is like a whole secret cabal of these cardigan-wearing mystics that are librarians. But this is I've never received a standing ovation.
You
before.
cannot characterize librarians like that.
Because I actually was awarded my initiate's cardigan, having done this thing in Nashville. They're like, you are now among us. You speak for the brethren. You are a non-shush person. You are now one of us. It was amazing. There was a whole bestowal ceremony. It was great. But they're onto something. So libraries now become the third space. There's home, there's school. And adults, we used to have Starbucks. Kids have libraries. And now libraries are relevant features in their communities because now they have esports clubs. And it's tied to the fact that I know your teachers and I know you've got a book report about Mongolia due. So you better bone up on Genghis Khan. You could play Civ 6 and see what his actual moves were, but you could also finish up and do the research. It's in the stack right over here. And again, this is scholasticism and gaming coming together in a way that kids don't fight it. Then I go, oh my God, it's homework. They want computer time to play. Check off with me that your grades are doing well, right? Hold you accountable. Great. Guess what? You've actually gone up. You've earned half an hour this week. Woo! Who says no to that? So
our library has been, I took a page from Tristan Wheeler out of Cleveland Public Library. Tristan is running their esports program out there. And he actually got with Jay Collins and they did a Cleveland area, and it was a combo of school and libraries. So it wasn't just, you had to be one or the other. It was a club is a club, a team is a team. Doesn't matter where you self-organize. In Racine, we have had the issue of not having teens in the libraries. And we know that once you get kids in libraries, the typical thing with libraries, and I sit on, for those of you who don't know, I sit on a library board and I oversee libraries for my school district. Families will bring their kids in, till they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then that's it. And then you don't see people coming into the library again until their 20s or 30s. There's that huge gap in there. And I said, look, we can start to attract kids and we've never got before through esports.
Yes.
And so what they did was, rather than buy desktops, they decided we're going to buy laptops because we want to be able to take things down and put it back up. We only have limited space right now. Sure. But let me tell you that I don't have a crystal ball. I didn't know COVID was coming. But what now has happened is that the Racine Public Library, instead, because we can't go into the library, Wisconsin is, the hotspot of hotspots apparently in the world or something like that right now. Yeah. But the library is checking out those.
No. Oh no, we seem to have lost James. What a horrible thought. There you go.
I'm here.
You're back.
So hey, it hiccuped. It happens.
All good.
But we did manage to now those laptops are getting checked out to kids who are in digital poverty. Those kids who don't have a PC.
That's what you do.
I know that I am begging and borrowing and stealing from everywhere I can get the devices that we need for kids and the licenses or whatever, but it's nice to know that this now becomes a community effort. Esports can be the thing that brings a lot of people together that schools and libraries are easy to bring together, but we've got our private business partners as well too. But it's so amazing to see that people are now starting to realize, it doesn't have to be the, world, League of Legends championships in China level of production.
That's right.
It can be the 5 laptops that get put down at the end of the day and put into cart and then pulled back out later somewhere else.
Right. No sizzle, no pyrotechnics, no lasers, not at all. Kids are just happy. Again, it's like you go anywhere in the world, you've got a big open space, you throw a ball on that field, kids know what to do with it. You give me a laptop, you give me the ability to load up a game, I know what to do with it. I will play. Again, what do humans like to do? We form communities. It's innate. So I love this idea. Again, libraries also, much like the Postal Service, they've got to find a way to remain socially relevant or they will become extinct. They will be replaced, right? Journalism. So newspapers are going that way. If you can't pivot to digital, who's buying print anymore? I don't know. I'm with you. I still love a book. They're all around me. My nightstand is clear. Why didn't you get that? I got you that Kindle for Christmas. Why don't you read the Kindle? Because there's something about page turning. That's an anachronism, but I adore that. Libraries do have a place, and I think that they can become this. I think that they can. I love this. I didn't know it was a concept. We're a no-shush library, and that got such the huzzah because that is seen tantamount to, like a fascist regime. When you shush a kid because they're excited about something they just learned, or they conquered something, mastered something, and they emote, well, why would you downplay that? Because we learned that it's a mortal sin if you yell in a library, and she who has no name will fly out of the sun and eat your head. Librarian. They're not like that anymore.
But what it used to be, I mean, you look back in the history of libraries, those giant desks, those giant circulation desks weren't just for they were meant to be barriers, because there was a time when you wanted a book, you had to go to the librarian and take the card and say, I would like this book, please. And they would go back and get it. There was no browsing the stacks. There was and it's only taken us 150 years, but in 150 years, we've gone from the library being a place where books are stored and our collectors, it was a dead storage, if you will, in a lot of ways.
And then knowledge was purveyed. You had to be somebody bestowed upon you the right to have knowledge. You may now go to the library and pick up that tome and then, partake of. It's not that anymore. That's a whole equity statement right there. So, yeah, now we've got ease of access, the barriers are down, and the fact that we don't shush kids, that we let them know we got to control them, because anybody out of control is still, a hazard to everybody. But let's emote in the right ways, and the fact that they're bringing in teams and they're celebrating it, and that's what's getting that tween to early teen. YMCA is the same reason that all these community-based organizations have that same drop-off pattern. And esports, they have figured out, is their way to attract. Yes, I know that there's some money being exchanged at that. You pay for membership, but you're also instilling values. That's what they liked about partnering with NASEF, that our mission, vision, values were very similar to the ones that they had. So that was a great fit. And then those teens that get attracted back into it, they can also plant the flag. To your point, they're playing esports. They can play for the Y. Maybe 5 friends that play a game together don't want to play for their 3 separate high schools against each other. They really are the Fantastic Five. They want to play together and they want to win. We'll go to the Y and do it. So that's Switzerland. I can play there on their team as an admixture. So again, community relevance.
Well, and it doesn't need to be one or the other. You can do both. I know we've got teams. So because of the number of kids that we're servicing this year, we decided to we only are allowed one JV team that can technically compete at our state association, but that's not going to keep us from self-organizing into let us have we're going to do kind of like a European soccer model where you can actually pull a couple of varsity kids down to your team if you need to. That way there's that growth. There's that I get to play with somebody who's a higher level than me and get some experience playing, but also the chance now to trade teams, to not have to necessarily be with just that one person, but maybe get the experience of working with others as well too.
That's it.
I'm starting to see, just like with my sister, she had her high school swim team and then she had her private swim team, and she would train twice a day. Neither of those mattered to her. It was still competition. It was still,
That's right.
She still got the same value and benefits out of training for both, just different experiences, different people to swim with. So
that's exactly it. The scholar gamer will find his or her way. That's exactly what it is. Doesn't matter where. Good.
So with as we're starting to wrap up the interview here, because gosh, we're going in for a long while today, which isn't a bad thing.
No, not at all.
But where have you been, I guess, most surprised by somebody's initiative or somebody's idea or somebody's like, hey, we're going to do this year, and maybe you've seen it, or at least conceptually it's there. Have you been surprised by anything pleasantly in the recent months, just because, again, of the situations that we're facing right now? Because it seems like whenever somebody says, how do I start esports? Maybe this is a better question. How I start esports, I say, well, first thing you need to do is get signed up for NASEF. And second of all, reach out and say, hey, we're thinking about starting our program, and how do we begin? So maybe that's a better question to ask you, is where have you been surprised by people who have been reaching out, schools that have been reaching out, areas of the country, or, NASEF isn't just North America. It is also, you've got connections in Britain. You have a connection in Japan, which that is fascinating to me. And you, I know, are a aficionado of the language.
Still on the,
yeah. But you also, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Your work to get the connection to Japan isn't like signing up a school here in the United States.
No.
So let's talk about that in a second. The cultural difference that selling esports, because Japan, you would think, South Korea, big gaming culture, big esports culture. Japan, big gaming culture. Esports is not really, you barely hear anything come out of Japan when it comes to esports.
Social stigma. So long story very short. I have been working on my relationship with Japan for about 2.5 years before this has actually come to fruit. And I'll bring you very quickly through it. About 2 years ago, I got a call from the assistant director of esports at UCI, Kathy Chung, and she said, "Hey, I've got a tour."
Love
coming.
Kathy, by the way. Love Kathy.
Congratulations on the immense
my God.
she pulled off. Just Discord queen at this point. She's amazing. Calls me a couple of years ago and says, "I've got a group coming over from Japan, and we know you're the guy. I used to live there, used to work there, open hotels there, so it's my thing." Those of you who know me or might be listening, that that my wife is Guatemalan. We speak English and Spanish at home, except my grandson, when he was born, my daughter said, "Teach him a different language." I speak 11. She picked Japanese. So we have this Guatemalan boy who speaks Japanese and not Spanish. So this is diversity in our household. Yeah, I got a thing for Japan. We can call it that. So she called me and said, "Can you help? We might need your linguistic support, but you get what's going on with esports. You understand UCI, the college scene. They have questions about high schools. Can we get you to come out?" Perfect. Love it. Let's go do this. Great couple of guys. They represent a large internet products, so peripherals and computer manufacturer in Japan. But they saw the light that esports could be a lot of things. Japan is, much like China, much like Korea, a rote learning environment. If you go to Japan today, it is 13th of October. They will tell you every single teacher has their book for their discipline open on the exact same page. They're teaching the exact same content in exactly the same way. Wow. The only thing different is the gender and the accent, but it's entirely patterned. Monbukasho, the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sport, has it this way. This is what has worked. These interesting individuals said, nay, there's something different about this. We'd like to begin to interject. This is Captain Janeway and the Borg. I want to put in a virus that's slowly going to change the Borg over time. We want to change the Japanese mindset, first about education, but about career tech ed. Career tech education is thought to be the default when you are not smart enough to get into university. If you can't get into college, you can opt for social stigma. You can opt for a career tech job. You have to work with your hands, which is a family blight. As you know, some kids actually kill themselves. The shame is too much to bear. They want to change that. So they came to UCI, wanted to see what was happening at the college level, show us that wonderful theater where they actually go to practice, tell us about what's going on in NASEF. We kept that relationship going for several months. And then I was introduced to a group that wanted to become NASEF in Japan. They started as JSEF, Japanese High School Esports Federation. Went over there last year, November, signed a memo of understanding, much fanfare, and then it got quickly shut down because the operating business partners were still scared. This was too much of a challenge.
Really?
And esports represented this North American model. Even though esports is big, games are developed in Japan, Korea to the north, they shine, China, big money, high rollers, right? They're all doing this. In Japan, they consider it, they took a page right out of the World Health Organization and said it's an addictive behavior. It is bad for you. It's pathologically insane. You should not do this. They have a syndrome called otaku. Otaku means homebound, a homeboy, a fanboy, somebody who sits at home and does X for hours and hours and hours. So if you're otaku, you're doing this for hours and hours, and that's considered a social blight. It's in their book of medicine that this is a psychological condition, and they wanted to find a way. Can somebody help us out of it? And their researchers have not shown what Dr. Mimito, what Dr. Constance Steinkuhler, Dr. Katie Salin, and everybody else who that we work with here, formerly of Wisconsin, now over in Irvine. Don't throw rocks.
She will be appreciative to know that it is going to be 40 degrees by the end of this weekend. So
and she'll still be surfing. So that's it.
Yeah.
So they wanted to see how this could change, bring us into the present. So we got this going. Partners at that point kind of shut back JSEF. So let's just make it a national thing. We'll have a national, like a regional sports program. Third Wave is the name of this other group. They came back and said, no, but seriously, we want to be international. We want to bring in curriculum. We're serious about this. So now we've created NASEF Japan, its own independent separate NASEF aligned group. They're going great guns. They've got 10 schools recently that have signed on, 60 more out of 4,000 high schools in Japan. So they've got it targeted. They want to run regionally, but they want to also bring in this idea about curriculum, show how clubs lead to careers. And those careers are not just career tech, this bad sense. It is something that is admirable, something that uses STEM, something that uses 21st century skills, all the things that parents and educators find to be uplifting and what Japan may be known for, but in a new, novel way. And again, something that we can show them with healthy gaming and wellness that we've got curriculum developed for that now. The chances of being addicted, which you and I both know is just a misdirection of childhood energy. You're addicted because of intrinsic, extrinsic values that we don't know how to pocket those in the right way. We don't know how to manage our time and do it properly. We can show that. So they're very interested. They're on board. Singapore is Switzerland in Asia. They're all over this. They get where this is going to go. They're going full court press. Be surprised if I don't tap you to come and be a knowledge expert and speak during the winter boot camp we're putting together. I knew.
Yes.
So let me see where that's going to go. But yeah, so we're changing Asia little by little, but because there are brave souls there who will run against the mighty, patterned, eternal machine that is the Ministry of Education, and they know what's good for Japan. Again, this is a country that locked itself off for almost 300 years. From 1600 to 1868, and said that we don't need y'all.
It just took one battleship going into Tokyo Harbor to get it all open.
The Dutch and the Portuguese, exactly. Oh, trade will be good for you. But yeah, that was it. And Admiral Byrd. So,
but real quick, because I don't want to lose this point.
No.
You described there's a concept. A Japanese concept that you talked about where things come up and then it's like they have to, I won't call it marinating, but it's like the ideas have to rise up and they have to, what is that concept again?
So there's so many like that. So in business, we call it nemawashi, which is preparing the roots for transfer.
That's it. Yes.
So we've got to socialize a concept and we talk to all of the potential stakeholders. Hey, I'm thinking about a thing. What if this existed? If we change from blue to red, do you think the shacho, do you think the president would like that? Our company president? Do you think people get behind it? And there's a lot of that kind of walking around the point, very Japanese way to go about things. Nobody ever goes direct. Americans are always blamed for being so blunt, so forward, just cut to the point.
I wouldn't do well in Japan.
You would, because you were culturally sensitive. I beg to differ that if you knew what to say and how to get to your point, you could get to there quicker. But if we, both of us, run bold to the China shop, right to the middle, prize, let's get on this, they find it offensive. They find it that you don't take into account seasonality, something as banal as weather, how that affects my emotions, my ability to receive your information. There is a very interesting, what I love about Japanese culture is that they consider so many factors we consider extraneous, but it really does have bearing. Again, they build communities too, but in the way they've always built it, in a way that's very personal to them. So we have to learn how to circulate. We've got to learn how we socialize an idea, and then we've got to learn to surrender it up. This was the big deal. I'll build it for you. I'll do all these things, and it's going to be Kubo-san's name on that docket because he brought that idea, and it's going to be in that way. It's not a white versus Asian thing. It's not a North American Japanese thing. There's a hierarchy that is respected. Goes back to samurai and before. So we're going to bring that up, and the right person's going to become the mouthpiece, the spokesperson for that. We've got great partners now. Ozaki-san, who runs Third Wave, Hosoi-san, his number, Steadfast number 2. Just all the people I work with are champions for this, and to their level, we've now learned how this bubbles up and how we get this large level endorsement. And so then we got Mainichi Shimbun, so their nation's third largest paper. It's like bringing in the Washington Post to support us. Big. This is a big deal. Not only do we get the free press and coverage, but there are dollars that go with that. So schools now have equity. They can now purchase or rent to own equipment so they can actually compete and then do those career tech things during class time and then use that club after school. All the things that we do here that we think are natural with our Title I, Title IV Perkins dollars, we've got to educate them on this is how it rolls. This is how this can be made. And there is reticence. They are largely afraid. Teachers don't want to come out of this comfort zone. It's a rut. Let's call it what it is. It's a rut, but it's a comfortable rut that gets me paid. And I kind of like the game. I'm kind of otaku myself, but I don't want to mingle with that because I don't want to be identified. Oh, you're that addict. That's what you do in your weekends. So,
What's really interesting is my children are huge fans of anime, and and they watch shows like My Hero Academia, which there was another one. It's like Murder Academy or
there's all just so many. Some are dark, some are wicked. I mean, I go back to the 70s. Before there were Transformers, there was Getaru Boji. That's where I started learning Japanese in 1972. This was my thing. So yeah, it really gives you a blink about the culture because they make fun of themselves, but it's also a great expose. So they are getting a cultural lesson, as awkward as it may seem sometimes.
Well, and my kids watch what goes on in the schools, because how the schools are, and you're right, they do make fun of, they do have the really serious kid who is the class leader, and he's like very, we must be, cleaning the room. Right. I know that they do room cleaning and serve their own lunch and all that stuff.
Janitors. That's right.
Right. But, it's really interesting that how anime has opened up some of our, because I see it in our Discord server too, has opened up kids' eyes to, they see a school and they say there's aspects of that they really like. And what I'm hearing here is we may not totally agree with the changes that you're making to our school, but there are things here that we really like. As you said, that bubbling up, that percolating, that kind of taking the indirect path to get to where we want. It sounds like it's only taken, as you said, 2 years, but you're getting there.
That's it. And in 2 years, NASEF has helped them activate 10 schools out of 4,000. But that's immense progress in my book. Again, NASEF never puts a number. It says, hey, you have to have so many by this time, or you're not an affiliate. You can't have a club. You get there when you get there. I want to make sure that everybody is taking full advantage of everything that we do have to offer. But they've found a unique way. And I every Monday is my call. That's their Tuesday morning. And I love this call. I love what goes on. So we're planning conferences. They're looking for speakers. They're looking for interesting takes on what's happening in the world of esports. More of that offline for you and others, others of our extended clan here, because we really need to descend upon them and let them see and understand what can be done. And the fact that they have, like you said, students do own their schools and that they do clean them. They serve their own lunch. They recycle. They do take precious good care of what they've got, of all their resources. Sometimes as impoverished, we see Japan as this glowing electrical mecca. I'll tell you, I visited schools there talking to principals about, so this would be a great room for this is your esports room. These things are like Eliza's. It's antiquated. Oh. And the government gives them no more money for that. So we're helping to shift policy. We got to see how we're going to go. And it's going to be winning daily battles that will eventually win. There's not even a war. We're going to change the tide. We're going to change a culture. And it really is going to be high school by high school. So that is phenomenal to hear. I think that in and of itself, I mean, that could be a whole podcast episode just talking about, that. I mean, again, bring on board. Yeah,
the British Esports Foundation, again, I know and there's been overtures to others. Kevin, first off, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we're way over an hour, and I really appreciate us hanging out.
It's my pleasure.
And if I can, if people need to get in touch with you?
Sure.
Again, I've said this to people many times, but just out of your own words, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you to learn more about NASEF, to get started? Is any question too dumb to ask?
No, never. Of course not. We're educators. Of course not. Actually, the dumb question is the one you never ask. If you're thinking it, others are asking it. If you're daring, if you know your superintendent wouldn't necessarily go down this path, but you want to find out, please bring it. I had somebody from Los Angeles Unified School District reach out again. Now, here's another large school district, one of the largest in the nation, and last to the party because of their own inner workings and the politics and what are we going to do and how's this going to happen and am I going to look good if this goes or am I going to get the credit? Teachers still come up to me individually and go, excuse me, you're those guys? She said to me, I love this, that best way to get involved in what she did. She went to info@nasef, NASEF.org. That'll get you, we'll answer any question. It goes out. Somebody reads it and goes, oh, that's a Kevin question. That's a activation question. That's a curriculum question. That's a how many students do I need in a club question. It gets filtered out to the right person. Our website, I love what she said. It was only slightly intimidating. Because we've got a lot on our website, nasef.org. A lot of what we've built over the last 3-4 years, it's up there. As you know, it's all for free. My favorite F word. We don't use those F words on your podcasts or on
Esports EDU. No, on Thursday nights, Esports EDU. I've been dropping in some of those lately just because.
Because you need to, because it's the season. But no, my favorite F word is free, because right now, NASEF, everything we've done, it's always been free. We don't put up an invoice for anybody. My time coming out to do this, my time working with anybody directly, all of that is done for free. All of our curriculum, the lion's share is there. We're still vetting it. We're combing out some to make sure it looks and feels nice and all the links work, but it's up there. We're not jealous. We know that if given the opportunity, people will take these things. We know teachers like to teach what they like to teach, the way they like to teach it. So you're going to take stuff and you're going to reverse engineer. Totally fine. Please do so. kbrown at OCDE, Orange County Department of Ed.us, or kevin@nasef.org will find me directly, and I'll answer any question anybody's got. I look at this damnable device too many hours a day.
Yeah.
I'm not, got to say it, Sam's going to read this later and say he did it again when I'm not leveling up in Summoner's War, a game that we all should be playing, but we'll get there. But yeah, I'll answer any questions, help anybody set up whatever you need to do on the terms that make good sense for you.
And just one little brief thing I know too, because you did bring up the curriculum. It's not just NASEF, you developing curriculum. This is stuff that's going through Orange County Department of Education, through California State Board review. This isn't just, a couple of worksheets you put together. I've looked at this stuff. This is state standards based, aligned.
That's it.
Stuff that, even if you're in a state that doesn't necessarily subscribe to, Common Core or California state standards, this is quality stuff that's developed by educators and vetted by educators.
That's it. The crosswalking is very easy. We've done this for Texas. We've done this for Ohio. We've done it for Florida. Two of those, one of those is a Common Core state. Ohio, Florida, and Texas do their own thing. But the standards are standards. So if kids got to be able to read and do a 5-paragraph essay, that's a standard. Guess what? We've got that, and they're doing it. So we just got to find out what the, that cranky multi-dotted code is and then line it up. But you're right. We are the only ones out there that seeks that state approval. We want to show that this is truly scholastic esports, that we go to the pain and suffering of writing curriculum and then go through months of review to get this approved so that it meets all the college entry requirements, which then transfers to, anybody else who wants to take it and run with it. No longer English. It is so many other subjects now. But love to talk with anybody. That's a whole other thing about how can you get started? What does your plan look like? What if you were going to build a new school tomorrow? If we're never going back to face-to-face, if this is always going to be a hybrid situation, how can you map differently? We've got a plan for you.
Kevin Brown from North America Scholastic Esports Federation and Orange County Department of Education. Thank you for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
James O'Hagan, my friend, thank you very much for having me. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAO Esports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.